Hello, hello, hello. There we go. Weird. Didn't recognize my microphone for a second there. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Just sending a couple of reference photographs to my computer. I'm very excited to show you why I was late today. There's a reason. There is a reason. It's because I was fiddling around and lost in my own head, coming up with a new theme, or perhaps an old theme, for my stream layout. hope it feels like a bit of a breath of fresh spring air. We're going to be switching over to it in just a second here. I'm just going to chit-chat and look at my phone for a second while I figure out some stuff to study today. We're going to be doing sketchbook studies in gouache, so lots and lots of painting ahead of us. Hey there, Lion, Lou, Rohan, Pachi, Fainish. Plutastar, Georgie, Triforce. Hope y'all are doing well. The late sun is treating me fantastically. From the first day that the time change happened, I have been much happier. I've already been pretty happy lately, but it is a mood enhancement. Hey, Ramens, how you doing? Need the stream today? Well, I got you. We're all here. We're all hanging out. Gonna have a good time. Ooh, this will be an interesting one. I'm gonna send this to Discord as well. And 2 should probably be enough for one stream, and if we need more, I'll get more. So I'm gonna send that over. Perfect. All right. I've delayed it long enough. It's time to debut the new layout. I hope it's not broken. We're going to find out together as a family. So let me see if it's working. Let me just go ahead and see. And there we are. Look at this. Some of it needs to be slightly adjusted, but overall, new layout, bright for spring. I was thinking, what are the brightest, springiest colors I can think of, and I immediately thought of that good mint look from Earthbound. So I hand recreated as many of the visuals as I could, like a real weirdo, but I wanted to give it a bespoke quality, so I made all the little boxes. I got the font in here, got the colors just correct, lined everything up best I could. I'm gonna be making some like custom sprites at some point to sprinkle around the scene to fluff it up a bit, make it look a little nicer. But I'm very excited. It is a loved aesthetic. I'm a big fan. Now, I'm going to get things ready in here by making a little frame. And we're going to have some fun, so it doesn't have to be precise, doesn't have to be measured. I can just be, which is what I'm feeling. Hello to all the folks who are coming in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you're having a good Tuesday here at the relative start of the week. I'm going to go ahead and open up my little reference page. Now, for this one, I actually need to readjust, reframe, reacquaint. So I'm going to move all of these paints aside because I actually need to do this one vertically, which is something I don't usually do. Move the paint jar out of the way here, just in case I knock it off the desk. So we're going to go vertically first, switching it up a bit. Got my reference ready to go. I'm going to dip right into it. Today we're studying, so it's chill, relaxed. Just going to have a nice time. Ooh, we got a sketch request already. You know I love to see it. A little Azrael chilling in a pool float. Absolutely. My pleasure. All right. I really need to reorganize all my scrap paper because it is truly everywhere. Here we go. Going through my scrap paper, I found a big sheet of the expensive watercolor paper that I use. Need to take that out of that pile. It looks like I actually need to get a new scrap paper because I've used up all of my small scraps. So let's cut us off a slice of that old Bristol. All right. Some new scrap paper ready to go. Go ahead and oh, will I ever not be a scatterbrain? Where'd I put that pencil? Aha. Aha. Found it. Okay. Now, the question is, can I zoom in a little bit more? Worst comes to worst, I can always just lower down the boom. I can get a little bit of zoom. Maybe I'll lower it down. All right, get ready, everybody. You're going down. Okay. You've been sufficiently lowered. So I can actually zoom back out a little bit. I really love having this boom mic thing. Because it goes way up. The thing goes like... It's taller than me, so it must be 7 foot something. Which is really, really fun. Because we're drawing on a very small piece of paper here. Now, to make sure I don't get it wrong, I should look up what an Azrael looks like, even though I've got a pretty good idea. Yeah, we've got a new layout today. I was working on it up until I started the stream, which is why we're starting a little late today. So I got lost in having some fun. Yeah, Azrael is truly just 2 orbs. Oh yeah, also as you can see, I've set up the new permanent subscription goal thing. So now every single time that we hit 50, I'll reset it. And once we hit 50, I do an art giveaway forever. So it's just going to be our new little thing, which I'm very excited about. But we also still have that March follower goal going. And once we hit 200 on that, we will be doing an art giveaway as well. And there we go. A fun little Azrael in a floaty. Well, it's kind of funny with Azrael because they are basically made of floaty. You're very welcome. Just mark that one with a check and back to paint mode. The photograph that I'm working off of is just one that I took in my office of one of the plants. And what I want to do before fully going into the detail on it is indicate where the large masses of light and shadow are, just so I have like an easier time when it comes to making the details. Because if you get stuck just rendering leaves, you'll be there for 100 years. And I do not wish to be there for 100 years. So I want to kind of unfocus my eyes at the beginning and get the big spots of darkness. The spots where the light cuts into the darkness, or depending on the contrast you're working with, where the darkness cuts into the light. And then start working on planes of light, sort of levels of light. So, for example, there's an area up here where there's a whole bunch of dark leaves. That's why I kind of drew this shape. It's just darkness. And then around it, there are light leaves with darkness in between. But the leaves gradually get darker as they go down from top to bottom. So these leaves are the lightest, and then dark gets darker. So I just want to capture some of that information. It's all about just getting as much information as you feel you need in order to properly portray the subject. And everything else is gravy, because the viewer's eye will do most of that work for you. As soon as the brain recognizes something, it uses all of its little power to fill in the blanks from its own memory. And say, well, that's probably a leaf, so I'm going to tell you it's a leaf. And then this is dark, 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 dark. Never want to lose sight of those big areas, so I want to just really group them together. Dark. It's kind of the central point where all the darkness is exploding out from the middle. And the leaves definitely go off the side here. I need to keep that shape. But there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of leaves in this shape, so I can't possibly... Well, I mean, I could, but it would be a very boring stream if you just watched me render leaves. So instead, I'm just grabbing the biggest leaf shapes that I need, and then the rest will be blobby. And then right here, I need to make sure that I really focus on the trunk of the thing. Hey, thank you for 4 months, Bun Time. Really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. So I need to get that trunk established. And I can go down here and continue to work backwards, back and forth. The leaves are more spread out down here. But I know that up here, they're much more massed together. So I have these dark areas in here I really want to establish. There we go. Down here as well. Okay. Hey, Redbird. Now I want to lay in a lot of loose color. So to do that, I'm going to be working with just a lot of water. Laying down a bunch of water and then making some nice big blobs. Let's go ahead and get my brushes ready, and then we'll get some paint on the palette. So I'm getting my three main guys here. Calligraphy brush, of course. And then I've got my big brush, which I'll be using to put the water on. Some nice clean water, and then I've got my 1-inch, which I'll be doing most of my color laying in. That one. All right. So we'll get a little bit of opera. Now the leaves are green. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I don't want to go just whole hog on leaf colors because I want some variety, but also I want good contrast colors to work around those leaves. So for the background, I'm going to be working with some yellow ochre because I want the painting to feel warm. So I'll use those for the undertones. And I'm using the opera primarily as a like light and shade, grabbing some permanent white. And getting a couple of light colors here. So I'm going to go in with just regular primary yellow and a little bit of permanent green middle for when the light is really hitting those leaves. Now for my deepest shadows, I'm going to go classic. I'm going to get a little bit of the cobalt turquoise light, and then I'll be going into some ultramarine as well. And there we go. All right. So without further ado, let's just have some fun, huh? So I'm just going to get some water here, and then we're going to drop some paint right onto it. So I'm just going to go in, just let those pencil strokes dissolve, just make sure that the paper is covered. We've got that nice tone on the page. And then with a wet mixture, we're going to go in with yellow ochre and white. That'll be on one brush, and then on the other, I'm going to be going with some turquoise, yellow, and white to make that really, really, really bright, like vegetation green color. So I'm going to go right in to where the leaves are the brightest and just establish those areas. I'll dip into a darker green, still with that yellow and that white. Now I'm going to jump over to my 1-inch brush with that yellow ochre. I'm going to put a little bit of that opera in there just for some flavor. We'll get in between some of these leaf shapes here and just kind of mix it together. Now we're pretty much going to switch over to the calligraphy brush for the rest. So I'm going to mix in. First I'm just cleaning up the palette a little bit. So I'm going to get that turquoise, I'm going to get that ultramarine, and a little bit of that opera mixed together, a bright purple. Trying to take some of that water out of the brush. I want a pretty thick mixture here. I'm going to try my best to hold up near the bottom of the brush, and that'll allow me to get some randomness to my strokes. I'm just letting these colors all kind of push together. Sorry if you can hear all that background noise. My neighbors are being noisy. But it do be like that in the springtime. I'm already losing some of the water that's on the page now. It's getting to the point where it's drying up. But the plan is for this vegetation to mostly work opaquely over top of these layers. I just want a bit of that faded atmosphere for the beginning of the painting. And then we're going to work a little bit more precisely over top. I really need to push these large areas of darkness over here, because it is quite a large mass of shapes. I need to impress that into the overall image. Otherwise, the whole thing will look kind of wobbly. Just trying to get all of my shapes nice next to each other. And you can see the more precise that I want to get, the more that I sort of choke up on the brush, until eventually by the end I'll just be doing this kind of thing, this sort of drawing position. Okay, so I'm thinking now I can lay the piece down. And I can start to evaluate the areas where I want to go in and redefine. So I've got some spots of light that I want to darken subtly because I want a bit of a glow. Right in here. I'm using kind of a watercolor sort of drop wet into wet technique here, because I don't want to mess too much with what I've got established. Oh, hey Jenga, how you doing? It's nice to see you. I'm going to add in some of these more realistically colored leaves back here. Kind of shore up the area in behind. I also need a good counterpoint to where the light is shining on the tree. Back in with these dark colors here. Oh, I'm doing all right. I was saying earlier how I lost track of time working on this new layout and forgot that I actually needed to stream. So in a hurry, I started the stream up. But I was having so much fun getting the thing ready. There's still a lot more stuff I'd like to add to it as well. Now over here, the light is really capturing these leaves. So I'm going to really emphasize that by just putting some of this almost unnatural green. Like it's really, there's a poppin' green. Mostly yellow. Just how I want to indicate that the sun is shining on it. It feels bright and airy. And it's these sort of colors that I'll be bringing into the piece when it's more dry and putting over top to create some of the three-dimensionality. So at this stage, we need to start focusing on not using as much water. We just need enough water to let the paint flow. I'm also going to put a couple of kind of just spot color masses in the background. I'm going to dip into a little bit of white, a little bit of blue. Make kind of this sun-drenched background over here. And with the opaque white, I can kind of go over, even though I know it's going to dry darker, I can start going over some of these spots over here where I want to shape what the actual like leaves are going to look like in the finished piece. So just using straight white and dotting in around the shapes of the leaves, I can sharpen and manipulate how I want those final leaves to look against the light surface. Doing some of that stuff with the poster color the other day has given me a little more bravery in trying to experiment with thicker applications of gouache, which is something I'm not really used to doing. But I want to play around a little bit more with that idea. I'm just putting in some of these abstract shapes that mean something within the context of the photograph I took, but don't necessarily mean that much to the painting, other than I like that there are abstract shapes in those areas. Like, I like that there are shadows and the shadow shapes there, but they don't really need to be represented as things in the painting, because it's not about the realism as much as it is about the feeling. So I'm just like, I want like this blob over here to kind of offset the rest of the stuff that's in the background. All right. So now that I've got that established, I want to grab my hairdryer, dry this off, and then start working on some light and dark offsets within the color range that I've already established, and see if I can't better define where this tree is in space. I'm going to mute for that, so get ready for my magical, quiet hairdryer. All right. So now I've got that. Make sure that my brush is clean enough. Doesn't matter too much because we're going to be using a pretty thick application here. But I am going to go for some acrylic gouache, which I am going to have to use the Mad Torture device on. Let me put the cap back on this thing because I know exactly what's going to happen if I put it in here and start crocheting it. Okay. Beautiful. I'll get just a little bit of the bright yellow acrylic gouache as well. My acrylic gouache is pretty much dead at this point. It is gelling, which is not great, but also it's several years old and it's on me that I didn't use it all this time, so I'm trying to use it as much as I can now, just so it doesn't get wasted. So I'm just cleaning up this palette here. Actually, let me see if I can move my palette over so you can actually see. There we go. Paper towel. Okay. Too much water. Just enough water. Now, one thing I'm trying to keep in mind when I go around all of these shapes is the three-dimensionality of the leaves. So they're not all, in the same position, so I can't just use the same stroke for all of them. You need to think about the ones that are on the side and the ones that are leaning forward. But also where they catch the light, which, lightest from top to bottom in this lighting condition. But it's a very easy thing to say, and it's another thing entirely to remember. Now I've got dark green and opera here, but I want a little bit of red, so I'm going to go with primary red. Hey, Abby! Thank you. I'm very sorry for talking with my paintbrush in my mouth. Hello. Okay, too much water. Let's get some of the water out of that brush. Go ahead and make the background part a lot darker by dipping into dark green and red, which are opposites, on the old color wheel. So again, it's off to establish those areas of dark space. And it's not necessary to focus on every single little leaf. It's just about finding all the spaces that are absolute dark. I'm not going to bother remixing this color just yet. Instead, I'm just going to use it until it's all gone. And hopefully it wears thin as I go here, so I get a little bit of a gradient. I have played the new Fortnite, Abby, and I had a really fun time. I only played one match. I got destroyed by presumably a young child, but it is what it is. The crafting rules. I don't know if you've dipped in yet, but I think you will be a big fan of that crafting. Thank you, JC. Tribute to the classics, Abby, I would love to play some Fortnite. I've been thinking about it since I played this morning, because I wanted to get in and check it out. The little prelude thing, the single player thing that they have you do before is it's not much gameplay wise, but it's tremendously beautiful. It's one of the prettiest things I've ever seen in a video game, which was really neat. So I took so many screenshots. Heck yeah. All right, establishing dark areas. And after we get all of these really dark areas in, we're going to work on the medium dark areas and then work our way back and forth. And then hopefully we'll find a nice equilibrium. I'm trying not to get too tight and precise with these shapes because I still want a little bit of that spontaneity. I want a bit of that fun nature. So I'm still holding about halfway up the brush. I'm just going to brush off the page over here because I do want to really establish the fact that the leaves are going pretty far out to the side because this is the main foliage of the tree. I am almost to this point where I do want to remix this color so I can have an even darker mixture to go back. Because now that I've established some of these places, I see even more places where I need to go back and add darker colors in. And go over here and add some nice tight details to contrast against the looser details I've been putting in. To paint a plant. Truly one of my favorites. As usual, I got the Yeti full to the brim with a big beverage. This thing's been a game changer for me this year. I got it as a Christmas present, and I've always been so bad about when I'm working, I zone out, and it's not really about like not wanting to drink water because I'm always wanting to hydrate. But like I would bring up a glass of water or whatever, and it would just go like warm by the time I actually got around to remembering. Like I would reach over and it would just be lukewarm water, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I mean, listen, if I'm truly dehydrated, I will drink any water, but I prefer a nice cold water. So this Yeti thing, some good stuff. Keeps it cold for days. Don't gotta think about it. All right, I'm gonna go back in. I really wish I hadn't put the red right by that white. I'm gonna try to not pick up any white with this. I'm gonna go back in and remix this dark color. Make sure I don't have too much water on the brush. There we go. And once again, try to mix up putting in those sharp details with getting those big loose blocks. And I'm trying to make it feel like it's all coming out of the middle. It's like, you know, bursting forth. That's the approach. Now, a lot of the most delicate flowers, not flowers, leaves in this case, that I want are the ones up at the top. Because you'll really see those shapes strongly against the bright light at the top of the page. And thank you for your kind words about the stream layout. I had a lot of fun putting it together. I was excited to bring some bright colors into it. It's just so fun to establish the blobs and then work on these just very delicate shapes, just unbelievably, just tiny little minute shapes. And then when they pop against each other, it's that thing that I refer to as the world's slowest magic trick, where when you're watching it come together, you don't notice it until the second you do notice it, and then you're like, whoa. Like suddenly there's a tree. All right, let's put some more light areas in the background. And to do that, I want to go against the green. Man, you can really see how this acrylic gouache here just wants to stick to the palette. And I mean, that's the nature of acrylic gouache, because it's gouache with acrylic paint mixed in. So it dries like crazy fast, and it dries to like a very plasticky, acrylic style finish. So once that stuff dries on something, it does not want to go. I still have some plates, some like ceramic plates downstairs that have the acrylic gouache dried on it, and it does not lift. I could probably chisel it off at this point, but it's not something I relish doing. I'm gonna mix a little bit of the remaining red and the blue. Makes a little purple. Just want to put some more very floaty leaves up at the top. I'm trying to check and recheck my picture balance on the actual stream window, because it's actually a better perspective for me, because when I look at the picture, it's leaning away from you. And you should always know that when you're doing something like that, when you're looking at a flat surface on a desk, when it's not tilted up at your angle, you can draw in like a weird squished way. So instead, I'm looking up at the stream window to see how it actually looks from top down, which is really helpful, actually. I'm going to take a bit of this green and the opera, mix that together. Kind of just using up the remainder of what I have on the palette here. So there's kind of this like straggly secondary leaf grouping down here. I'm just assembling now. I'm going to get all of the little stems coming down together, and then it kind of comes down into this area here. Get these delicate little stem groups. Okay. Now, to stray away from all of these purples and greens that I've been using, I need to warm it up significantly. So I'm going to go back into that yellow ochre and white mixture that I had at the very beginning. I'm going to lean a little heavier on the yellow ochre and the opera. Make kind of a blush, like a rouge. Make sure we don't have much water at all because we're trying to go opaque on the surface. And we're just cutting around those shapes just like before. Just like we did with the really, really light color, which I'll be doing again near the end of the painting. Especially over on this side where I have a lot of bright green masses and even these darker masses down here that I will want to further emphasize by showing the light shining through. So now I'll get a bit of this white. Because I don't want all of this to be green. Oh, Georgie, thank you so much for gifting that sub to the community. Enjoy your sub as CO Dork. I noticed that too. I wonder if doing all of my stream layout stuff today reset something? All of that stuff was done on the website, so I don't know why that would have reset, but I'll casually navigate to the website now just to find out. That was under alert box. I think. descriptions. Alert variants. Well, they're still in there. They work in the test. Oh well. Just one of those things, I suppose. See you later, Pachi. All right, now I'm going all in on the white gouache, mixing it with a little tiny bit of that warm color. So let's really put some light in here. So I want definition between these leaves specifically. That's better. Now we can go in here and add sort of another path of light. Hey, Evie, how's it going? Hey, how's it going, Nuri? I just set it up today. That's actually why I started late today, because I was just messing around with it and having too much fun. But I'm really happy with it now. It was quite a treat tracking down all the fonts, seeing how they actually did all this stuff in the game. Get that Earthbound feel. All right, so that's one study done. I got the plant that is currently sitting directly behind me, and it seems happy with what I've accomplished. The scrolling background, it's actually deceptively easy. If you go to any image that you put into Streamlabs and then you right-click on it, you can open up a setting called Filters. And in Filters, there's just one called Scroll, and you just mess with the sliding bars, and you can get it set up exactly how you want. You can have it scroll in any direction, at any speed, too, which is nice, because I didn't want it to be, like, dizzying. But it's a nice feature, especially if you can get a really good repeating background. So we did greens. So I'm thinking for the next one, maybe we'll do something that is upfront warm colors. And then we'll work from there. I'm going to move my palette over because I need to move the whole book over. And thanks to the power of technology, I should just be able to like zoom out a little bit. I think I can zoom out a little bit. If I can't do it in software, I can sure do it in hardware. Oh yeah, there we go. Just a little. Make things a little easier to see. All right, so we're going to be working on this side now. So I'm going to get my clamp. Let's get the fancy one. Let's get the fancy one. Boop. And for the next one, it's a true panorama. It's a photograph that I took when I was coming into the valley, driving down out of a mountain. Just a scenic view of the highway leading into the general area where I live. It was taken a while ago now. I think it was like a year and a half maybe. It was in the fall. Back when traveling was still a thing. Oh, yeah. The moving BG is deceptively simple. I had to do a lot of Googling for tutorials and stuff, but when I found out, I was very pleasantly surprised because I am bad at computers all around. I try my very best, but I was glad the solution was simple because it doesn't always work out that way. All right, we got our frame set up. I'm thinking like a medium horizon. They always say medium horizon is boring, but you can make it look exciting. This picture is going to be all about the planes leading into the background. It's all about stacking those planes and giving them enough contrast in between that it creates the sense of scale. Check you later, Lux. Thanks for stopping by. So I'm going to have the mountain. Got North Mountain on the other side. This is coming down out of the South Mountain. They call them mountains, but listen. They're just really, really big hills, to be quite honest with you. And then we've got the forest over here. This sketchbook is a Pentalic Aqua Journal. I actually just got a new one. Just got a new shipment in yesterday, which I'm really excited about because we're getting close to the end of this one, and I want to crack into another one because for the next while I would like to do studies in the sketchbook. Okay, and then we have an area that winds around. So it's picking areas of light and dark alternate. So down here, where the highway, follow the highway over here, and that's the highway's the area of light against the dark ground. The highway, even though it is like a medium tone gray, it still represents a value that's much lighter than the ground. So down here, and then in the foreground, we've got the curving of the road. So since our vanishing point is back here, behind the hills, the road's going to curve like this. And then we've got the shoulder of the road, which disappears down over the blind crest. And then over here we've got a road sign, which has the exit marked. I think I took this picture coming back from a trip, because it's like the path that you take when you're coming from the airport. Here, and then we got like an overpass. I'm not going to bother with the cars just yet because I don't want to hurt myself. And back here we've got more forest, but it's a higher plane of forest. So all of these details are going to disappear. Essentially, I just want to establish a lot of the values and shapes going into the background as we go, and I'm mostly going to do that with color and light. So just what books to look at to better understand how to control temperature and value with pigments? Very good question. Color and Light, the James Gurney book, is one of my absolute favorites for just about anything regarding capturing like the essence of reality, even in hyper-realistic or fantasy settings. It's one of the greatest things about that book. And there's tons of great examples from across all of art history, as well as many examples that James painted himself. But yeah, Color and Light. I believe the subtitle is A Guide for the Realist Painter. But in addition to that, a lot of my learning has just been looking at YouTube videos and watching other people paint. But that is generally the way that I learn best. So that is just how it is. Now, what I've got on the palette right now is a lot of green, a lot of yellow, not much warm. And I want to make this warm. I want to make it much warmer than it actually appears in the photograph. The photograph is kind of faded. It's an overcast day. So I want it to glow a little bit. So to do that, I'm going to keep that yellow ochre going, but I'm also going to add a little bit of deep yellow, which is a golden color. And in addition to that, I want to get some reds and orange. I'm going to go with Orange Lake Deep, only because I'm very close to the end of this tube and it would be a good idea to use it. So just a little bit of that. And then, what do we got here? Burnt Sienna. I don't usually use my Burnt Sienna, because I thought it was burnt umber when I bought it. I feel bad about that, though. If you got an art supply, you should use it. It's generally not the color that I'm looking for, but you can always mix stuff with it. And then I've got some alizarin crimson for that deep, dark, purpley red. And to cap it all off, I'm going to go with Primary Red if I can find it. Where do you live, Primary Red? Where are you at in all of this? Hello? Oh, there you are. It's hiding. Okay. So I think we got enough to start. I'm going to go in with a little bit of quote-unquote clean water. It's not actually. This is the same water we've been working with, but it's thinned out enough that it doesn't really matter. Like, there's a little bit of green in it, but it's okay. And I'm going to work my way down after wetting the page. The important thing is that it all gets covered. I'm going to start with white. Just a tap of that yellow-green. red and green are opposites, so they gray each other out. But I don't want to go full gray. Instead, I want to go for kind of a like overly milk coffee. Just mostly white though. Into that wet page, we're just going to drop it in. With a couple of breaks in between to have just some interest in the clouds. I'll clean some of that off and then just go back in with damp brush. Okay. And I'm just going to take this color that we already had on the palette, this sort of purple color, and I'm going to just use this for the distant mountain horizon. And I'm also going to use it to value dot some other parts that have a similar, like, light. So now I'm going heavier into the red, carmine, that orange lake, and green. I'm just kind of holding the paper up so I can let it move down the page. I'm going to grab some of the tree lines there, just add a bit of dark color for contrast. For things in the distance, it's always good to just imply. You don't always have to state exactly what the things are, because again, the viewer will fill in most of those details themselves. Which is why it's so great to just drop stuff in with paint, because it, you know, it'll spread and move and do all that fun stuff on its own. And as long as you just drop it off in the right spot, it takes care of a lot of those things for you. Okay, I need to light up some of that color. So I'll stick with the blue. I want to have a bit of like blue in the middle and then warm on the outsides. So kind of like pushing a frosty gray. Now the gray road. Then there's an overpass just over the road. Was that over the pass? And again, just holding the book up so that I can let the paint flow down. Sorry if it doesn't make for the best view. But after I do this initial like wet pass, I will be just laying the book down. It'll be much easier to see after that. Okay, and the road rises. I can more or less just leave it there, dot in some of these buildings. Okay. Now, where did I put my paper towel? So with the paper towel, we can go in and just lift some things if we would like to. Just want to make it a bit foggier back here. Don't want things to be too clear, too precise. All of those things come later. Right now, I just want the feeling of it. Okay. So from here on out, we'll be using the handy dandy Calligrapho. I want this to kind of feel like an old photograph, you know? So I want to do some purple, some blue, some red. Those are going to be the ones I'm bouncing around across. So I'll be bringing color back to this piece, slowly but surely at this point. But it won't be the colors that appear in the photograph. I'm going to use this middle, sort of middle purple color. I guess it's more dark than mid. I'm using this for a lot of the sort of top greens. It's almost a bit like a Zorn palette in a way, because I'm straying away from the things that show up the most in the actual photograph, which is it's very green and blue. It's very blue tinted, especially because it was an overcast day. So the photograph shows up very blue tinted. But for all the greens that show up in this, instead, I'm going to be using this kind of like warm light gray. Now I can start focusing on the things that appear above this overpass. Knowing where the highway goes, how it winds into the background, will help me plan this next bit. But I also need the colors to fade as they go back, so I'm watering it down. Just getting less and less of that pigment. Hello, hello. Yes, new layout day. So lately I've been thinking a lot about watercolor and how watercolor might fit into my own kind of work situation. And it's something I've never really put a concerted effort into, painting with watercolors. I think maybe because it was one of my first bad experiences with art, like way, way, way back before I ever started actually painting properly. You know, like most youngsters, at some point in my youth, I was asked to try and watercolor, and I did not have a fun time. I'm gonna get some blue here. Maybe I'll get some violet for fun. Let's try this. But I didn't have a great time, and so that kind of soured me a little on the idea of it. But I've been using gouache for so long now, enough years, and it's similar enough to watercolor, with some key differences, that I'm just like, you know what? Maybe I'll try watercolor again. Also, I just watch so much watercolor YouTube, like, especially recently. There's just so many great watercolorists out there, and I feel like I'm ready. The process is just so fascinating and intimidating too, because as similar as it is to like the medium that I use, the process is different, and especially the thought process involved, the planning, it's different. It just is. And that scares me a bit, but I think that is why I should try it, because I'm intimidated. It's usually a good sign when it comes to art media. Let's give it a shot. All right, let's go with some white. Get kind of a lilac. Slowly but surely, Jenga. Slowly but surely. I mean, for a while there, I was kind of trying anything that came across my line of sight. But that was mostly when I was able to like go to art stores. And I feel like I just need to make it come to me now. I need some zinc white. Where's my zinc? Give me some zinc for my nose. All right. The nice thing about true watercolor, and I do apologize for constantly talking with my brush in my mouth, it's just how I am. The nice thing about like a good, high quality artist watercolor is that the pigment stays suspended in a very satisfying way. And you can do some real manipulation techniques to just get those soft, subtle shapes. And I really, really want to do that. It's something that fascinates me when I watch these watercolorists. That they can do these big washes and then drop stuff in and wet into wet. And it looks so good. And then the crisp details that they drop in. Why not me? Okay, we got the road back here. More highway. Which means I can finally start deepening the colors of the distance. Because actually, most of the dark values are right here, in the middle of the valley. It's just a matter of determining what colors I would like to have in there. I think dark purples. So I've established already some kind of muted purples to take the place of what normally would be green. So I'm going to get rid of some of this water. Let's go in with a medium purple first. I wish I knew what was up with those busted notifications, but thank you so much, Lion, for gifting that sub. Now here's the part of the painting where I just start jumping around like a wildman. Thank you. So we've got a lot of our values in place now. I'm just gonna start jumping around a little bit and trying to cut into the direction of the painting. My goal at this point is to move the eye toward the distant highway, which might be easier said than done, but worst comes to worst, I can always super darken it and then cut in with light colors. Howdy. Good gravy. We've been going for 2 hours. Well, I might have to wrap up here soon, but this has been a good old time. Time flew on this one. I guess I really got sort of absorbed into the piece. I love playing around with stuff like this. Alright, maybe I'll do... It needs to be darker than the highway, so this is actually a good color for it. Let's try that off. Do I have these brushes in a set? No, this is the only one of the calligraphy brush that I currently have. Although, I ordered in some additional brushes from Japan that will be here on next Wednesday, which I'm really looking forward to showing off on stream. They were some that I've been putting off getting for a while, but I was like, hey, you know what? After 2020, there's no time like the present. something that gets a little bit closer to a warm gray. Let's go with a little bit of green into the purple, yellow into the purple. And those should opposite out enough. And the trick to getting this right is not to use too much pigment, but instead just use the water, because when it dries over top of the gouache, it's going to leave these kind of stains, which normally you don't really want, but you can make really cool effects like, say, water drying up on the surface of a road. Just something that I want to convey here. How do you decide which brush to use for things? It's a good question. I kind of swapped around a bunch of different brushes for a lot of my early watercolor and gouache paintings, until I saw a video from James Gurney that was talking about brush control and how that was way more important than like using different brushes. And he specifically, I mean, he literally used this brush, well, one just like it from the Richardson travel set, the short handle, 1 inch. And he was saying with the 1 inch flat, you can accomplish pretty much anything you need. Now, of course, it doesn't do everything, but he was saying like, it's really important that you learn how to use this to do flat washes, move paint around, but also use the corner to do detail work and things like that. So for a long time, I just used this flat brush for pretty much everything, and I still use it for quite a bit. But then I started just playing around with the calligraphy brushes more, the Japanese style brushes, because I was watching just a bunch of color demonstrations from Japanese background artists from animation. And they would use the brushes to really interesting textural and special effects, making clouds, doing hyper focus detail work and things like that. So I started incorporating that one into my overall kit. But for the most part, it's the flat brush, like the 1/2 inch and the 1 inch, and then the calligraphy brush. Those are pretty much all I use. But it is definitely just a lot of like play around and find out. Okay, so I need this surface to be very dry before I put the road lines on, so I'm going to go back to doing detail work in the background. Thank you, Pachi. Okay, just a little bit of permanent white. So we can do those highway lines. Try to get as little water as possible here. That certainly brightens things up a little bit. Gives it a little bit more dynamism. Actually, I won't use paint for that detail. Use the Posca pen instead. I feel like giving this one the frame. There's the Sharpie. Did you know that the Sharpie Magnum in my art collection actually has a twin in this giant white Posca? I don't know what to use this Posca for, but it's so huge. There we go. nice, chill, serene little setting of like a rose-tinted memory. And then we've got the my little office tree that I painted earlier. Very, very fun. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming out and hanging out with me today. This was an absolute blast, as always. We'll be back on Thursday for Copic Thursdays. We're going to have some more fun with markers. For those who haven't been to it before, the chaos is real. Everyone in chat gets to pick what marker colors I use via the vote. And then once I've got 4 or so markers selected, I have to come up with something to draw and color with those markers. It's a real hoot. It's definitely the most chaotic stream of the week, which, you know, for this stream, it's still actually pretty chill. So stop by for that. And then we're painting again on the weekend. On Saturday, we're going to be doing more poster color painting, trying to learn how to harness the way of those wild Japanese paints. So please follow if you haven't followed. Subscribe if you would like to support my art journey. As a reminder, every time we hit 50 additional subs, art giveaway. Somebody gets some art for free. Oh, also, we're 4 followers away from hitting the March follower goal. I don't know if that'll get hit between streams or if we'll hit it on the next stream. I guess we'll see. But very excited about that as well, because as soon as we hit that goal, someone's getting some free art. So I will see you on Thursday. Please have a great evening / morning / whatever it is, wherever you are. And I will see you on the next stream. Farewell.